Hello, I have bangs now. I also reorganized my bookshelves Saturday. Today is Monday, and more importantly, you saw 2 books, but I do have a small book haul. I was at a campus book sale on Wednesday because it was right next to my class. I just wanted to browse, and I saw this edition of White Nights by Dostoevsky. It is a book that's been on my winter reading list, and I'm hoping to get to it in February. I bought it immediately because I think it was brand new because the pages are so white. The thing is, the writing is really small and I don't think I can annotate it. So I'm hoping to find the penguin cover of this to annotate. However, it is out of stock everywhere. But I did find White Nights, and that was pretty exciting. And then the rest of the books I got at my university's bookstore. I have money on my student card, and I think I only have enough money left for one more book now, 1 or 2. But I can't withdraw it, and I can either spend it on food or stuff at the bookstore. Of course, I would buy books, so. I found Permafrost by Eva Baltazar. This is the first in a collection. They're all individual stories following, I think, lesbian women and their struggles. Eva Baltazar is a Catalan author. This was translated by Julia Sanchez. I was very happy to see this. I don't know if it's a very summery read, but I think I'm keeping it for April, a nice in between. I was really happy to see this book because I didn't think it was gonna be there. It's not as popular, I don't think, not to the point where I thought it would be at my campus bookstore, if that makes sense. It's Juno Loves Legs by Carl Geary. This is an Irish author, and this is a story of friendship set in Dublin in the 1980s. And on the back, it's compared to Shuggie Bain and Just Kids. And I'm actually currently reading Just Kids, as you saw, and I am loving Just Kids, so I think I will love this one as well. I adore stories of friendship. The other one that you saw in the beginning of this video was Slow Days, Fast Company by Eve Babbitt's. This is a essay collection. Wanted to dip my toes into Eve Babbitt's. It was just there. I had to get it. It was calling me. And then the final book that I'd gotten last Monday was A Way of Life Like Any Other by Darcy O'Brien, another NYRB. This is from an American author, and it is described as a willfully eccentric coming-of-age tale that starts in Hollywood and goes completely bananas. Very curious to read this. I think I'm keeping it for the summer though. This year I want to try and read books that are not as talked about. I don't think I've gotten into a single read without someone else's opinion in my mind already, and this year I really want to read books like that, books I've never heard anyone talk about, and from authors I've never read before, so that I can't have an opinion going into the story. These 4 were the books that I got last Monday, and I actually went to the campus bookstore because I was looking for Stoner by John Williams, and I think I stayed like a good hour in the bookstore browsing every single book, every shelf, but I couldn't find it. And then on Friday I got pretty bad news in the morning. It's not anything life-changing, but I was not in a great mood for the rest of the day, and to make myself feel better, I was just like, let's buy another NYRB book at the campus bookstore. And there was like 5 of them set on a mini shelf, and I was hesitating between the one that I got and Lies and Sorcery by Elsa Morante, but I didn't get that one because I like the cover of the one that I got more. And also I never heard about the one that I got, so the same thing goes for that one as for A Way of Life Like Any Other. I want to read more books that are not as well known. The one that I got is Boston Adventure by Jean Stafford. Quickly perused the back, but not a lot. It's a beautiful cover. It's my favorite NYRB cover that I got. I genuinely adore this painting. I could have it in my own house. I just think it's beautiful. It is a long book, so I don't know when I'm going to read it. And right as I was gonna get this, I turned my head to the right next to the shelf where these 5 NYRB books were. I saw Stoner by John Williams. I can't believe I didn't see it the first time because it was the one shelf that I hadn't looked. Genuinely, I looked at every single other shelf but this one, and there it was. They were all stacked on top of each other like this, and if I hadn't turned my head I would not have seen it, so I'm so happy that I did. Stoner is a book on my 2025 list. I'm hoping to get to it in February because the themes of loneliness, isolation, solitude are just very pertinent to February in my mind. So these are all the 7 books I got. Also, I am filming this vlog in English. I filmed a January book wrap-up last and I posted it yesterday, but I don't think that I want to continue doing those over the year, and I might just include book reviews in bookish themed vlogs or just vlogs. This year, one of my resolution was to not be so hard on myself with my videos and just film them in the language that I want when I want. Hence why this vlog is in English. It's already 2 p.m. and I've done nothing so far today. My class this morning was cancelled. I have another class today, 5 to 7. I was supposed to go study with a friend, but she also cancelled, so now I have no plans. It is really nice outside. There is some sunlight, but it's on and off snowing and it is very cold. So I don't think I can go sit on a bench and I'm unsure what to do. I'm almost halfway through Just Kids and I'm loving it so far. I'd gotten a taste for Patti Smith's writing in Devotion, which I really enjoyed. I had especially enjoyed her prose, so I was really keen to read Just Kids, and I think the base of the memoir being more her relationship with Robert Mapplethorpe rather than their fame is really special. I feel like it's a gift to read about such intimacy and love between two people. They really read and feel like soulmates, and I don't think that's achievable very easily, and I also don't think it's that common in life. I don't think it happens to everybody, but I feel a lot reading this. I was going to listen to it with the audiobook and I decided not to, and I'm really glad I didn't because I can really take my time, like I'm savoring every little piece of this book. Good morning. I'm about to go outside to do some quick groceries. I need to get some bread, so I'm gonna go to a bakery, and I also need to buy some eggs, so I'm gonna do that as well. And I think I might get another cup of coffee. I don't have coffee in my house anymore, and I haven't bought new pods, so I've just been having coffee outside, and I allow myself to buy 2 cups of coffee a week, and then I can get free coffee when my friend works at a cafe, so it all works out. Anyway, before I go, I wanted to quickly talk about Just Kids, which I finished this morning about an hour ago. I cried a lot at the end of this book. I knew I was going to because the end of the book meant hitting the end of Robert's life in the story, and I knew that was going to hit me. It did, and I was trying to put it off because I didn't want it to end. I didn't want to read about the end. Luckily, it was not drawn out, which I appreciated, but I spent a lot of time afterwards perusing the photos in the book. The book has a lot of photos from their story, which I think just makes the whole piece even more moving and reflective of their love for art. When I talked about this last, I really talked about how it explored her relationship with Robert, and while that obviously stands true, it also just explores their relationship with art and the art scene in New York. And I wrote this down in my reading journal, but there was a vibrancy to the way that she describes New York, which made it come alive. And even though I obviously didn't live in that time, I could really picture it. And that's something that's pretty difficult for me. I tend to not really get a lot of images in my head when I read a book, which is a little weird. But this one was pretty easy to imagine and see, and I think the photos helped. I just watched an interview of Patti Smith talking about how she was trying to write this book in a very visual aspect, and every scene in the book she could see visually in her head, and she wouldn't write a scene that she couldn't see visually because Robert wasn't a fan of reading, and so she wanted the book to kind of be accessible to people who don't love words. And I think she did it so well. I honestly didn't know much about Patti Smith before I read Devotion, and I still don't know much about her. I haven't listened to a single one of her songs. I was waiting till the end of this to get into her music, but she is a really great writer. She writes in a poetic way. I also wrote down a lot of quotes that I really loved because a lot of the book was really moving to me. The only thing that was a little confusing at times for me was the mentions of a lot of names, because I only know the really popular people like Andy Warhol, Bob Dylan, Jimi Hendrix. Sometimes it felt a little hard to grasp who she was talking about, and I didn't have the heart to pause and Google everybody in this book, but I did Google a lot of people, and it kind of really made me interested in seeing more. I really want to find an exposition and go to it now. But overall, I genuinely recommend it to anybody because I think you don't need to know much about Patti Smith or Robert Mapplethorpe or even the art scene in New York at that time. You learn about a lot of it once you read everything that Patti Smith has written. Yeah, that was my review. I really wanted to give you a review because I love this book. Home for a little bit. I've been working on an essay, but before I finish this vlog, I wanted to share my February TBR. For those who may not know, February is Black History Month, and so despite my TBR not being fully comprised of books by Black authors, I did want to make it mainly from Black authors. That being said, one book isn't in there that I am reading over the course of the next few months because I have to read it for class, and that book is Parable of the Sower by Olivia E. Butler. It is a dystopian book, and I don't think I would have read it if it weren't assigned for my class, but I did want to mention it. Okay, the first book on my TBR was Just Kids by Patti Smith, which obviously read incredible. That's all I have to say about that one. The second book is actually another reading for class. This one is a book that I chose, so I'm going to be reading it for my own pleasure, of course, but I get to talk about it after. That book is Zami, A New Spelling of My Name by Audre Lorde. I encountered Lorde in my classes in first year at uni, and I do want to make a video where I talk about a few authors that I've come across at university, especially in my women and gender program, because there's a lot of brilliant authors that I've come across thanks to my degree, and I think they're pertinent. Audre Lorde being one of them. I am not one for poetry because I do think I often have trouble with fully understanding poetry, and it's something that I want to understand better as the years come. But Audre Lorde's poetry is quite straightforward without it being simple. It talks about a lot of important themes, and so I really wanted to make one of my research papers on a book, and I thought Audre Lorde is the perfect author for that. So anyway, I chose Zami. I think I'm going to read it once in February and then just go back to it for my paper that will be due in April. The paper that I'm going to have to write was one of those papers where the topic was completely free to us to choose, and so I knew I was going to do it on a book, and I was honestly hesitating with Sula by Toni Morrison. This is not in my February list because I don't know if it's a February book. If you read this book and you could help me for assigning it a month or a season, that would really help me, because I don't want to start it and realize that I won't be in the headspace for it because it doesn't reflect the moods of a month, if that makes sense. The next books that I put here are either Lucy or Annie John by Jamaica Kincaid. I recently came to hear about Jamaica Kincaid. She is a Black author and I am really interested in reading her work. I don't know which one I'll start with. I think it will come down to whichever one I find a physical copy for, because I have an intense premonition that I'm going to adore her work and will want to annotate it. And there's a lot of books that I don't mind reading on my Kindle. There's also a magic to reading a book on paper and being able to transcribe exactly how I feel about certain words on my first read. Next book I put on this TBR is The Street by Anne Petrie. This is, I think, the longest book on my TBR because February is a short month, which means I can't read that many books. So I did want to focus on shorter books, but this one I came across when I was doing research for books to add to this list, and the story sounds really good. I'm going to read the little blurb. The Street tells the poignant, often heartbreaking story of Ludi Johnson, a young Black woman and her spirited struggle to raise her son amid the violence, poverty, and racial dissonance of Harlem in the late 1940s. Its haunting tale still resonates today. It sounds right up my alley, so I'm really hoping to get to that, and if I don't get to it in February, I'll definitely be reading this book. I've also never heard anyone talk about it, so once again, I can go in with a complete clean slate, which is really exciting to me. And then the final book by a Black author that I put on here is Night Crawling by Layla Motley. I've heard amazing things about this book. It talks about the failure of the justice system and it follows the experience of a Black woman. So I think it's perfect for February. And then the rest of the books are not by Black authors, and I don't think they're really priorities apart from the French books, but I'll get to the English ones first. The other two that I want to read we've already talked about. They're Stoner by John Williams and White Nights by Dostoevsky. They sound like good winter reads. That's why they're on my February TBR. The French books are higher on my priority because I want to read 12 French books this year by French authors, not just books in French. And one of them I've already talked about. It's Moi qui n'ai pas connu les hommes by Jacqueline Hartmann. I Who Have Never Known Men. It got really popular last year. It's on my list of 2025. And the other one is L'Amant by Marguerite Duras, The Lover. That one takes place in Vietnam during colonization, and I'm interested to see how she explores that idea, colonization. I'm a little wary because it is an older book. I hope it doesn't come across as a tale that promotes colonialism, but yeah, that's my list. I am going to be getting back to writing my essay. I think this is goodbye for this vlog, so perhaps I will see you next time. Bye!